Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Ajoe21love, here with another episode of Sports Overview Topics, number 24, part 1. Part 1 because, once again, the Ravens-Steelers game that was supposed to be taking place on Thanksgiving night was postponed to Sunday, and then postponed to Tuesday night. So I'm recording this part 1. Basically, I'm going to be recapping the games that happened on Thursday and Sunday, and then I'll make a part 2 on Wednesday, recapping the Tuesday night game between Ravens and Steelers, as well as the Monday night game between the Seattle Seahawks and the Philadelphia Eagles. But I'll be recapping those games as well as giving some news on some other stories throughout the NFL. But thank you all for joining me today. If you're new to the podcast, like and subscribe. Click on that bell for all notifications. And with that, get into the news today, shall we? So, some news for the 49ers. So, the 49ers stadium is on a hiatus for the next couple weeks due to COVID-19 issues. So the 49ers, they have 2 home games in that 3-week span. So they were trying to figure out some contingency plans for where to play their games. And they'll be playing their games in their division rival stadium, the Arizona Cardinals Stadium, State Farm Arena in Arizona, for the home game next week against the Bills, and then following week against Washington. So there's that. Also, Daniel Jones, who strained his hamstring yesterday in their win, and the Giants win over the Bengals, strained his hamstring, and he's going to miss some time. He'll miss at least one game. I thought they were the most liked team, in my opinion, right now to win the division. Now, with Daniel Jones missing some time, perhaps that leads to Washington's favor. But we'll see. And Lamar Jackson, he also tested positive for COVID the other day, which I'm not sure is probably the prime reason, I would say, as why the postponements. That's what I've been hearing. That's what at least people think. But yeah, and then of course, the whole quarterback room of the Broncos got tested positive for COVID. Well, Jeff Driscoll, their backup, tested positive for COVID. And all their other quarterbacks were close contacts, and all were unavailable for the game yesterday against the Saints. Thus, they had to start a practice squad wide receiver, Kendall Hinton, at quarterback, who hadn't played quarterback since since his days at Wake Forest. So, on pretty much a day's notice, have to revert back to your former position and play quarterback against the Saints was a tall task. So now I'll get to the news, the games. So, like I said, with the postponement of the Ravens-Steelers game, we only had 2 games on Thursday. Still good Thanksgiving. Besides, 2 games better than nothing. So first, the morning game, we had Deshaun Watson and the Texans go Detroit, play the Detroit Lions in what was Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn's final game as part of the Lions organization. So this was a kind of a back and forth game, but kind of sloppy. The Texans won 41-25. The Lions, they had some glimmers of hope to start the season, but it just felt like a mirage of sorts. And Deshaun Watson was just on fire. 4 touchdowns, no picks. He was just the Texans. J.J. Watt had pick 6. It was just a good day for Texans, bad for Detroit Lions. I feel bad for that guy who was performing prior to the game. They said he was a Detroit native. Whether he supports the Lions or not, I don't know. But if he did, I felt bad for him. Thank goodness there weren't any fans in the stadium because it would have been a riot act probably. But nonetheless, good for Texans. They still have a shouting chance at the 7th seed. They're 4-7. They still have Tennessee again and the Colts twice. So an uphill battle, but anything can happen, I suppose. But good for Texans, bad for the Lions. Just bad. Next up, in this last game on Thanksgiving, Washington was at Dallas. Washington, this game could have gone either way. Obviously, Dallas won that shootout against Minnesota, and Washington, they've always been kind of in check. They're efficient, an efficient team nonetheless, but their record, yes, is under 500, but they're an efficient team. They got Alex Smith at quarterback. They got a solid stud at running back, Antonio Gibson, a number 1 receiver, and Terry McLaurin. They have a solid defense, underrated defense. That front 7 is just deadly, and they have the number 1 rated pass defense in the league. But Dallas had their moments, but it was pretty much all Washington. The second half, primarily. some of the calls what Dallas had were confusing. It's like that special teams fake, that punt fake, um, in the fourth quarter when you're only down 4 points, and it led to an Antonio Gibson touchdown. It was just difficult. But there were 2 plays of the game as far as Washington side. So there was a trick play that actually worked for Washington. It was a pass from Logan Thomas, who's a former quarterback, tight end. Threw it to Terry McLaurin, who had a really good day, 93 yards receiving. And yeah, then there was a pick that was denied a 6 by Terry McLaurin as well. That was picked off by Jalen Smith. Besides that, Alex Smith had an efficient day, 19 for 26, 149 yards, touchdown, and that pick. But, Washington, they're going to stick around. They're efficient. Alex Smith handling the ball. They have a nice core of weapons on offense. The question is, can they still ride it going forward in this division? Definitely. Next week they got Pittsburgh, which will be a tough task, but if they can hang around, and that front 7 will keep them in any game. So yeah, it'll be interesting. So then going to the games on Sunday, which were pretty good. So some good finishes nonetheless. So Miami beat the Jets 20-3. Ryan Fitzpatrick was sorry because of thumb injury to Tua. And Fitzpatrick did what he needed to do against the winless Jets, the terrible Jets. I mean, Sam Darnold, they had some nice throws, but the Dolphins are a playoff team in the making. The Jets just terrible. Now, well, say for both sides. So Miami's a playoff team, but as I look towards the other playoff teams in the AFC, because Miami has a decent room of playmakers. I mean, they got Devontae Parker, you got Preston Williams. They got Mike Gesicki. I mean, they got Salvon Ahmed, who's okay back. I mean, they got some decent playmakers, but what's going to win them games primarily is going to be their defense and special teams. Because their defense is really good. Now, yes, they were playing the Jets, but they have shown up this season. And they're for real. I mean, that secondary, Xavier Howard, Byron Jones, Ubanagane, sorry if I butcher his name, Van Noy, Ajoe, Agba, excuse me. Yeah, Shaq Lawson. They got a real group on defense, but I don't expect some high-scoring games. It's just I'm not. I don't think they can really contend with, say, a Pittsburgh, a Kansas City, um, Tennessee, Indianapolis, maybe Baltimore, maybe uh, Las Vegas. We'll see, but nonetheless, good win for Miami. For the Jets, I mean, so we know where they're headed. We know that this team's all about taking, and it's all about getting Trevor Lawrence in April. Now, when I look at this team, Trevor Lawrence, I believe, is more talented than Sam Darnold. Now, credit Sam Darnold hasn't gotten a fair share due to the horrible landscape of the Jets. But when you look at the Jets, they have a decent core of receivers. Mekhi Becton is a cornerstone at left tackle. Is basically the only good part of their offensive line. Um, if they can build on that defense as well, I mean, CJ Mosley may come back next year. We'll see, but the more you think about it, it's not that bad, especially if they get the right coach. Um, it wouldn't be as bad for Trevor Lawrence as it may seem. So then the Patriots are still in it. They're still in it. Um, they beat the Cardinals 20-17 on a walk-off field goal. Once again, Nick Folk gets it done. He hit the walk-off to beat the Jets. Beat the walk-off to beat the Cards. Um, this was an ugly kind of football game. It was back and forth. Um, Kyler Murray, I don't think he's 100%. I mean, I just some of the throws I saw, it's just the way he's implemented in the offense. I don't think he's 100%. That shoulder is probably not needs to be. Now, we did what we need to do on offense. Um, 2 touchdowns by James White. Cam made some plays. We ride that offensive line and that running game. Damien Harris is for real. It's just, and now they missed a field goal. Arizona did late to put them ahead, but at the same time, they went for on 4th down inside the 1 instead of kicking the field goal right before half, which when you look at things would have tied it, but not really sure where things really would have been. Nonetheless, the Patriots did what they needed to do. They're still in it, 5-6. We beat Baltimore, we beat Las Vegas, and we beat Miami. So we got some tiebreakers in the bag if we need them. But yeah, we'll see how it still goes down. So next game was a topsy-turvy game. It was in the first half, it was just a head scratching game kind of for me. I mean, so in Teddy Bridgewater's return to Minnesota, Vikings pulled off the last minute win touchdown to pull the lead, and Carolina missed not one but two field goals. One was blocked, and the potential game winner, they missed. It was just a weird game because, no one was really moving the ball. They were both kind of moving the ball well. It was 10-7 at the half, Minnesota, and then Carolina gets not one but two defensive touchdowns, both scored by Jeremy Chin, he's definitely in the running for Defensive Rookie of the Year, Jeremy Chin, who they drafted. But it looked like it could have gotten ugly for the Vikings after that because, Cousins fumbled, they scored. Cook fumbled, and the Panthers scored. And you look, and Dalvin Cook, he was limping off the field. He had to take help. It looked like, the Vikings, it could get horrible. But next thing you know, you see Dalvin Cook, he's stretching, he's running on the sidelines. He seems to be okay. He's back in the game. And all of a sudden, the Vikings are still in it. So Carolina goes down the field. They, like I said, missed the field goal. And then Vikings came back, hit a touchdown, and then next thing you know, it's 27-21. Minnesota's driving down the field, hitting with Chad Beebe, who coughed up a fumble or coughed up a punt to set up a touchdown for the Panthers. Redemption caught the game-winning touchdown for the Vikings. And like with the Patriots, the Vikings are not done yet. I mean, when you look at the landscape for the 7th seed in the NFC, it's really up for grabs because Arizona lost. They're 6-5. Yes, Chicago's putrid on offense, but they're 5-6, only one game out. Minnesota, they're only one game out, 5-6, and San Francisco, they, with all their injuries, are still only one game out of the 7th seed. So it's really interesting to look at where the 7th seed will go. Plus, Atlanta still has a nice shot. They are 4-7, but we'll see. It's going to be really interesting to see who gets in the playoff picture in the NFC because I still believe the Saints and the Bucks will both make it. at least 2 teams from the NFC West will make it. Only one team from the NFC East, and the Packers will make it for the NFC North as far as the division winner goes. So it's going to be really interesting to see who gets that final 7th seed for the NFC side. But good win for the Vikings. Next up, the Browns won. The Browns are 8-3. Like I said, they're the new Browns. They beat Jacksonville as they should have. The score was fairly close, which is a bit concerning because it was Mike Glenn who hasn't played or started in a game for like 3 years since he was in Chicago. I mean, the Browns they need Myles Garrett back for that playoff push. They definitely need him back because they are missing him on defense. But that offense, right in that running game, that two-head monster with Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb being back, that definitely helps out Baker Mayfield. He did what he needed to do. He was efficient. Threw it to Hodge, Jarvis Landry. Hats off to Cleveland. And so good for the fan base. They've been pretty much the laughing stock, like I said, for years of the NFL, and now they are a threat. They're back to being credible. I mean, just good for Cleveland. Also good for Cleveland in this aspect. For the last 3 weeks in Cleveland with rainy, windy, bad weather conditions, and on Sunday, they were able to play in sunny Jacksonville, and that was new, but good for Cleveland. Jacksonville. Right off the bat, I'm saying they're taking Justin Fields in the draft next year. I mean, that loss or that win versus the Colts week 1 is likely the main reason why they're going to be taking Justin Fields and not Trevor Lawrence. But still, we'll see what happens come April. Next was a pounding. Tennessee got their revenge against Indianapolis. They won 45-26. And, Derrick Henry just had himself a day. Ryan Tannehill was also really good. AJ Brown had himself a good day as well. 2 touchdowns, 1 recovered for an onside kick that he got for a touchdown. But all in all, the Titans imposed their will. They are a real physical team. And, when you go back to how they played 2 weeks ago, the game got away from Tennessee due to special teams. And in this case, the game got away from Indianapolis due to their defense just got stomped on by Derrick Henry. I mean, both are solid teams. Tennessee, I think, is a real threat uh, to anybody in the AFC if they play their cards right. And Indianapolis, they're a well balanced team, uh, and they were without Jonathan Taylor, who's on the COVID list, so that hurt them a bit, as well as DeForest Buckner. I think they will be back, but this just shows that Tennessee is much more of a problem than Indianapolis coming out of the South. Next up, I think we all kind of expected it, not the score, but the Giants beat the Bengals, the Joe Burrow-less Bengals, 19-17. Now, Brendan Allen, he did okay. He did all right. He did what he could do, but the Giants. Now, as I mentioned earlier with Dan Jones, he went out, came back in, um, but strained his hamstring. Uh, he did all right when he was in there. Colt McCoy, he came in and led him on some 3 field goal drives. Uh, so Colt McCoy, it looks like they're going to be riding him for uh, the next while or a little while. But the Giants' defense is pretty good. Yes, it was the Bengals, but still allowing only 17 points. I bet if Jones had stayed in, uh, the game would have probably opened up a little more. But yeah, good for the Giants. They're in first place temporarily in the NFC East. Now, I have to see about the Eagles game against Seattle. Um, but yeah, good for the Giants. I think if Jones can return, um, not be on the shelf for a long time, I would give him the edge, slight edge over Washington. But with Jones out of the picture for a little bit, I have to think Washington is the favorite to win that division. Next up, this was a bakery game. A bakery game. Now, what I mean by that, a turnover battle. A just turnover battle. Now, for the first part of this game, it was kind of clean. The Bills were leading. Cole Beasley threw a touchdown to Gabriel Davis. But towards the end of the game, this was just sloppy, Also, Joey Bosa had himself a day. He had himself a very good day. But sadly, coaching and the offense just didn't do their part. I mean, it's like the Bills gave up the ball, and then the Chargers gave up the ball towards the end, and then the Bills and the Chargers, it was just turnover. It's like, do you want apple? Do you want cherry? Do you want, cream cheese? I mean, it was turnover frenzy. But I think the part that was probably the most frustrating was at the end when, and this is a Chargers way to end the game. So at the end, around 40 seconds left, Justin Herbert, all he could do was throw up a Hail Mary uh, situation, and it was caught inside the 5 for the Chargers, and then they were down 10. So it's like, okay, you got a shot, throw up a quick touchdown, or kick a field goal, make it a one-possession game, and then kick the onside kick, and then see what happens there. So they run the ball right after that. You got no timeouts, and it's less than a minute. All of a sudden, it's less than 30 seconds. You throw the ball, and you get nothing. They got no points after that, and it remained 27-17. It's like, I like Anthony Lynn as a coach. When he came in 2017, he did a good job. He did a solid job his first 2 years. 9-7 after starting 0-4 that year, and then 12-4 2018. But last year they had a bunch of close losses. This season they've had a lot of big leads, and they have dropped them. Like, they're butterfingers. I mean, they've had the leads in their hands, and they dropped them. It's like, when you think about it, they should be over 500, but because they're butterfingers and they drop the leads, they are one of the worst teams in the league. When you look at the roster, they're one of the most talented in the league. But I think this just Anthony Lynn's calling card, and he's going to be let go at the end of the season. And yeah. And hats off to the Bells. They improved to 8-3. They start off hot, obviously, to the season. Kind of dimmed down from the start of the season, but they're kind of gradually getting back to where they were to start the season. And if they can just be more balanced on offense, and Josh Allen is a bit more efficient with the football, then watch out if you're anybody in the AFC, because they have enough talent on that defense to keep them in games. Now, I was disappointed in the way the Chargers finished that game, but the way the Raiders handled this whole game for the Falcons was just, what? Like, seriously? I mean, 43-6. I mean, there's always a possibility that, I mean, the Raiders played the Chiefs and they did everything they could have done to win. They didn't. And against this game against the Falcons, now we all know the Falcons are better than what the record has said, but the Raiders are a team that's supposed to be vying for a playoff spot, and they fell flat. They looked undisciplined. It was penalty after penalty after penalty. Then they turned the ball over. They looked flat. Um, I just don't know. Now, now, last year the Raiders started off 6-4 and finished 7-9. Now, I don't think history will repeat itself. I think this team is just better. This team is better than that team was last week on both sides. It's just um, disappointing how they didn't look focused. They didn't look ready to play Atlanta. Next up, the don't count the 49ers as well. The 49ers went to SoFi Stadium and beat the Rams. They swept the Rams. I mean, with Nick Mullins, well, Deebo Samuel coming back helped a bunch in their passing game. Um, they're starting to get healthy. Plus, Richard Sherman came back, and you could see it helped their 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 secondary. He got an interception in his first game back. Um, they're getting a little healthier. But yeah, don't count the 49ers. The Rams, the first half, they looked, I mean, it's probably a scheme. The 49ers probably just have their number, but it's just odd how the Rams couldn't get anything going in the first half. Uh, I mean, I have said that the Rams are the most balanced team, arguably, in the NFC West. The problem, though, of course, when you look at the Rams, is sometimes Jared Goff, uh, you take out the G in his last name, and then you get what he was off. Goff was off to start the game. He was rattled. I mean, that pick six to Javon Kinlaw was confusing. Um, Now, their running game kept them in it. They hit some throws, but their offense, and when they needed a stop late, when it was tied 20-20, it just couldn't make a play. Uh, and, good for the 49ers. They're still in it for the race for the 7th seed, but Rams just disappointing. Next up, I don't think anyone was surprised. No one was surprised, pretty much. Even if you're a Broncos fan, you couldn't have expected a win, really. Uh, the Saints beat the Broncos 31-3, basically without a quarterback. Kendall Hinton, I mean, what do you expect on a day's notice to go back to your old college position, and when you're a practice squad, start an NFL game against the 8-2, now 9-2 Saints? It's just now Taysom Hill, as far as passing goes, uh, he didn't look great in this game, but it was mostly the running game of Latavius Murray and Alvin Kamara, and they just had their way. And that defense is arguably the best in the league. Uh, Look at how well balanced and how they been ever since uh, they beat, ever since they squashed the Buccaneers on Sunday night. They have been really good, really good. I mean, that front four with Cameron Jordan, Trey Hendrickson, uh, Onumana, they have studs all over that defense. I mean, Mario Davis, Quan Alexander, Malcolm Jenkins, uh, Janoris Jenkins. It's just they have studs all around, and I think with Drew, weeks ago I said they were the most well balanced team, and the more I see it, the more I believe it in the NFC. And the Saints did what they needed to. The Broncos, look, Drew Lock, Blake Bortles, Brett Rippon, uh, be more disciplined. Be more disciplined. And pay attention. That's all I'll say. Don't put your team in jeopardy. Uh, Next up, this game was obviously it had a bunch of hype around it. Uh, and you were curious how it was going to go. Chiefs and Tampa taking on the Bucks. I mean, there has obviously been some tension going around, hearing with the Bucks. I mean, they haven't looked consistently all there pretty much this season. I mean, obviously there's the talent there. Tom Brady, um, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, Gronk, Brait, and that defense has some good pieces around. Now, the score was close, 27-24, but the Bucks just seem like the most confusing 7-5 team there is. Because when you look at it, they have all the pieces. It's just putting it all together. Now, you saw some good plays from Ronald Jones and Gronk and Mike Evans, and Godwin made a couple plays. Antonio Brown made a play or two. Couldn't really see all, but I mean, first of all, I want to ask, what was Todd Bowles thinking? Like, after the first touchdown, did he not pay attention? No, Tyreek Hill is probably the fastest guy in the league. And leaving him one-on-one with Carlton Davis, he didn't do him any favors. I mean, halftime is supposed to be the time for adjustments. And they did make a few adjustments. I mean, they did make it close in the end, but that defense could have done more. I mean, it could have definitely done more. They left some plays out on the table. Now, Brady, he had a couple picks. One was off a player's helmet when they were in field goal range, which, when you look at it, would have ultimately tied this game up and possibly sent it to overtime. But it's just the cohesion, and I mean, we know Bruce Arians, his track record, risk it, no biscuit. And Tom Brady, he's 43. We know he can still make throws, but that's not his style. Their best play has been this season when they are balanced, when they run the ball and they do play action and Tom Brady picks them apart. That's the method and formula for how they should play. But they've got, now, I get it. It's tempting when you got all these receivers and you want to line up the scoreboard. You got Mike Evans, you got Chris Godwin, you got Antonio Brown, you got Gronk, you got Cameron Brate, Scotty Miller, and you want to I'll say this is it feels like Antonio Brown has sort of, now I'm not saying it's really on him. I'm just saying that it feels like when they acquired him, it kind of also made them go away from what they are, which is supposed to be a balanced team, run the ball, and slice and dice. And they have tried to line up the scoreboards. They have tried to be Kansas City, and Kansas City is Kansas City. And like I said, I still think they'll make the playoffs. They're on a bye, and next game they play will be against Minnesota, but they need to get their act together because, I mean, they've lost two the Rams, and they lost to the Bears. Two teams that are in the playoff hunt, and that's two tiebreakers. So, and if they lose to the Vikings, who are also in the hunt, that's three tiebreakers, and that is just not good for the Bucs. If they don't now, at the start of the season, people were thinking it's Super Bowl, and then once the season kind of kicked off, the expectations dimmed down. Now it feels like if they don't make the playoffs, it will be a bust, pretty much. It would probably be the biggest bust of them not making the playoffs if they don't. But there's that. Next off, and then the final game covering today on this part one, Sunday Night Football, Bears, Packers. So the Bears, Mitchell Trubisky starting this game, his first start since the Falcons game. Um, it started off nicely for the Bears offense. David Montgomery, his first game back from a concussion, he had a really good run, but didn't score, and then they're forced to settle for a field goal. Rodgers, Aaron Rodgers, they went down and scored touchdowns. Trubisky, he had 2 picks. He made some nice things. The Bears' offense is just putrid. I just don't know. Now, they're still very much in it at 5-6. They're only one game out of the 7th seed. But it's just sad when you look at how talented that defense is, and it's just not being supported by a decent offense. Now, they got Detroit next week in their second game. Now, who do you start then? I don't know. You have to see how healthy Foles is. Trubisky. I just don't know. I do not know. As far as the Bears go. But anyway, so that was the last of the Sunday games. Of course, I'll be back tomorrow with my review on the part 2. I'll cover the Monday night game between the Seahawks and the Eagles, as well as the Tuesday night game between Ravens Steelers. Also, I'll give my predictions for Week 13. But also, one other thing I gotta mention: prayers out to Rigoberto Sanchez and his family, the punter of the Colts. Apparently, he's out indefinitely with a cancerous tumor, and he's getting surgery on that. So, prayers out to him. Hope he gets a speedy recovery and he's back for the Colts ASAP. But nonetheless, that's the part 1 for you. I hope you guys enjoy it. I know I did. Thank you all for joining me. I'm Ajoe21love. See you guys back on tomorrow for part 2.